Hello everyone, my name is Loco, and welcome to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg. However, our Terran, he's playing with the SC2 SCVs. The Zerg, he's playing with the StarCraft 1 drones, and his name is Rumith. Now, I think we're all familiar with Cure. I personally also, I've seen his username in a couple of tournament brackets, but I don't really know all too much. All I know about this particular game is that it supposedly is one of the best games of StarCraft Evolution that has recently been played. So, you may recall, I think I uploaded a video featuring StarCraft Evolution for the first time more than a year ago at this point, and it's a mod that has been in steady development. And at this point in time, there's constant tournaments happening. I think there's like a $15,000 tournament as well for StarCraft Evolution on the horizon. It's pretty sick. So, in case you're unfamiliar, one of the two players is playing StarCraft 2. The other player is going to be playing StarCraft 1. Now, there have been a ton of updates to this mod over the last year or so. I'm not going to be able to list them all off, nor do I know all of them. I'm obviously very familiar with StarCraft 2. I am not nearly as familiar with StarCraft 1. But one of the big changes, and one of the big criticisms that I had of the mod in the past, is that they have standardized the resources. So in StarCraft 2, when Legacy of the Void came out, they made it so that the main bases, the natural, basically all of the mineral lines, they just run out significantly quicker, forcing players out onto the map. And that is how StarCraft 2 is really balanced in the modern day and age. If you play a turtley style, you can really only do so off of two bases until maybe like 12 minutes, because at that point, you run out of cash. Now, from what I understand, we have set back all of these maps. So we're right now on Maganatha SEL, which is the StarCraft Evolution League. We've set all of these mineral fields back to the Heart of the Swarm equivalents, meaning that you can effectively all in off of a smaller number of bases for like twice as long. And there have been a lot of other differences made to the mod as well. So once upon a time, in StarCraft Evolution, you did not have like a high ground advantage, but as you may be aware in StarCraft 1, when you shoot from the low ground up to the high ground, there's a percentage chance to miss, and they have now also introduced that in this particular game. And from everybody that I've talked to that is familiar with this mod, they're basically all saying that the balance is actually very tight. So we're gonna go ahead and have a look. I don't really know exactly how good Rumith is, but I know he's a Korean player. And generally speaking, in my experience, Koreans that sign up for tournaments are good at video games. Obviously, it's also hard for me to predict how good someone like Cure is in a mod like this. Now, lucky for him, he gets to play StarCraft 2, and he's very good at playing StarCraft 2 Terran. But anyways, it's going to be nice to get an update as to where this mod is currently at. And you may have already noticed, we've got a lot of extra hatcheries coming up here for Rumith. The problem for him is that there are no queens. StarCraft 1 doesn't have any, well, at least queens that pop out of the hatcheries. You can make them out of a queen's nest. That'll be a little while later in the game, I guess, if we ever want to get to that point. No roach warrants available either. Instead, he decides to go for a Hydralisk Den, which, of course, you can make at Hatchery Tech. Creep Colony coming up. That's going to allow him to morph this thing into a sunken colony, which will be really good for base defense. Basically a little, I don't know, like a mini lurker, I suppose, where if a unit gets within range, the spines will start coming out of the ground. Nice grenade usage, as he's forcing in another one of those creep colonies here for now. Okay. Now, so far, the bullying here by Cure has been wildly efficient. He hasn't lost anything yet. He's already done a bit of damage on the other side of the map. Hydralisk is gonna get their speed upgrade, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of the upgrades have updated, well, graphics, for example, and so do the units. Look a little bit different. You may have already noticed that the StarCraft 1 Zerglings, these are, I guess, the StarCraft 2 equivalent of the StarCraft 1 Zerglings. Anyways, they look different than the normal StarCraft 2 ones. And a lot of this has been graphically updated, too, to just match the general theme. Really, Cure? This is what we're gonna do? Okay. We'll be adding on the quick additional Cyclone upgrade. And this is currently a bit broken. I don't really know exactly how relevant it is for the mod. But at the very least, we are going to be seeing Terran mech go up. Ooh, as we do have the units swooping into the main base now. We're going to see Terran mech go up against Brood War Zerg. Now, one thing I've always really liked about StarCraft 1 is that the more I play RTS games, the more I realize how good of a game StarCraft Brood War actually is. It was never really designed to be like a proper esport, but all of the units seem to just be so iconic, right? Like, all of the design really is excellent. The time to kill, just the general pacing of the game. I think most people would agree that StarCraft 2 may be a little bit too fast-paced. Something like Warcraft 3 is maybe a little bit too slow. In my mind, StarCraft 1 kind of hits it perfectly. And there's a lot of plays like that. Now, we have a little Hydralisk timing attack here from Rumith. I think Rumith probably is, by the way, not just a StarCraft 2 player, but mostly a Brood War player. Very popular game over in Korea. In case you're not aware, StarCraft Brood War is actually a far more popular game in Korea these days. Obviously, a lot of the pros at some point switched over to SC2. But then, well, as time went on, many of them switched back again to Brood War. And there are some really big tournaments still happening in StarCraft 1. Now, internationally, StarCraft 2 is definitely the more popular game, but StarCraft 1 is certainly on a bit of a resurgence lately. And this mod, in my mind, kind of like bridges the gap perfectly. Anyway, the early game is now mostly done. Both players have built up a decent economy. Blue Flame is finished right now as well here for Cure. So he's really going to be able to pile on the pressure. I would imagine that that is the arranged upgrade. That's probably the Grooved Spines research for the Hydralisks. Yeah, it's going to finish up right now. So we have Muscular Augments and Grooved Spines on the Hydras. Movement speed and ranged. They already have the movement speed. And very soon they're going to have the ranged as well. Now, Cure going for the classic bullies threat. What do you do as a StarCraft Brood War player against Cyclones? I'm mostly asking this question out loud because I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess you would need some sort of equivalent of like fungal growth. I guess there's Ensnare. That might be an option. Either way, for now, Cure is starting to break through a lot of this. I do really like the addition, though, of all of these Sunkens. The Sunkens hit very hard. But it's time to evacuate this base. More and more reinforcing Hydras are showing up. Yeah, and eventually, I think the Zerg is going to be able to use those reinforcing units to get rid of all of the Cyclones, all of the Hellions. A Queen's Nest. Okay, I brought it up earlier. I think what you... maybe Dark Swarm, is that also an option? Not exactly sure how Dark Swarm would work against the lock-on ability, because the lock-on ability is considered a spell. Either way, Defilers would also be, I think, a reasonable choice, or at least something worth experimenting with. But it's gonna be Queens. So what abilities do the Queens have again? I know they have Parasite, where they basically allow vision. They can put a Parasite onto a unit, and they get, I think, permanent vision of the unit that the Parasite is in. They have the Ensnare ability. They have the Infest Command Center thingamajig, but I don't really think you can reliably pull that off. So far, though, man, Cure is getting such good value. They have the Broodling thing where you, like, I think insta-kill certain units. Anyways, the Queens are coming. They're on the production tab right now. And we'll have to see exactly what spell Rumith decides to focus on. For now, though, it's really mostly just Hydras here dying against the Terran mech. But the Hydras are reasonably cheap. And it's not like it's become, yeah, completely free for Cure either. There it is. That looks like fungal growth as well, right? But a more Brood War looking icon for it. Should allow him to use the Ensnare ability on those Queens a little bit more effectively. This is Brood War right over here, man. Look at them. Aren't they glorious? I do really love these things. They're so sick. So that's the Ensnare research, indeed. Back before the Brood Wars, we could fly. Sure, Brenda. Sure. Let's get you back to your hatchery. Ooh, couple Hellions sneak around the side here as the Hydras are arriving. Here we go. Queen flank coming in. Can we use the Ensnare ability? We certainly can. I believe it reduces movement speed as well as attack speed. So, by the way, I may be getting some of the details wrong, but yes, this is a great idea to try and catch up with those units. Brood War spells also always seem to last forever, but this right over here is really good for Cure. While that little skirmish was happening, obviously losing those Hellions and Cyclones is bad, But while that skirmish was happening, he did still have a couple of the blue flame Hellions going to town. And 18 drones rather did fall. Nice lock on here as well. And the ensnare doesn't seem to cover everything. But now it's time for the Zerg to go across the map and start working away at some of the SCVs. Cure does have a 4th base, but I don't think you can really consider him rich at this stage in the match. He hasn't started up like the mass orbital command or anything along those lines. And actually, one of the orbital commands is going to get shut down here by the Hydralisks if he decides to retarget it. There it goes. Nice movement right here by the Zerg. Okay. Smart servos coming up as well, by the way. That allows the Terran player to transform their units in between the different modes a little bit quicker. Mostly useful here for the Hellions and Hellbats. But it's a bit of a luxury type of upgrade. He needs to be very careful, Cure that is, about additional queens. Yeah, he did kill a few of them. They're by no means cheap. But if you get overwhelmed again with another big ensnare, that could be a problem. But I guess as long as you keep scanning ahead, yeah, you can actually sort of see them coming in around the side, for example. That would be big. Dude, I love the StarCraft 1 music so much. So good. You can play that at my wedding and my funeral, okay? Such a banger. All right. Ooh. Now that is pathogen glands? I'm not sure. That is an upgrade that the Infestor used to have. Is it actually an original upgrade from the Brood War Queen? If so, I didn't even know that. Can we get another one of those ensnares off, though? The range is not necessarily great. Needs to be very careful about the whole shebang. I think he probably doesn't have the units in multiple control groups too effectively, but there we go. Cyclones get gooped up, and honestly, this might be the answer to Terran mech. It lasts so freaking long. Yeah, he's all army hotkeying. That's really hurting him. Rumith here, all army hotkeying the queens in. I think if you back those up and actually allow them, it's gamete meiosis. Whatever that is. So in StarCraft 2, I mean, it used to be an energy upgrade for the Infestor. These days, they don't really need it anymore, but SCVs are dying as Cure actually decided not to go for the planetary here, but instead decided to go into the good old orbital after losing the 3rd. And now he is getting surrounded of every side. Siege tank numbers, though, are slowly growing, and that's going to make life a lot better. Yeah, I think now you do need Swarm. So I think Queens together with Defilers may actually be the way to go. Either way, vehicle weapon upgrades are finishing. Ah, that's got to be the Zergling speed upgrade, I suppose? Metabolic Boost has a little bit of a different view as well. A lot of reinforcing Hydras kind of derping to their deaths as Rumith is tunnel visioning into the opponent's natural. You can see that mechanically, Cure is a stronger player. Just not really making any, yeah, unfortunate slip-ups. APM is very high for Rumith. But Cure, he may be 120 APM on average down per minute. It's certainly looking like the more efficient army movement. Problem for him, though, is that he's lost a lot of money. And again, normally, right, 13 minutes into the game, yeah, Zerg kind of needs that 5th base. Mostly because the main and the natural will run out really quickly. But, I mean, you still have some juice left over here. He can at the very least continue mining for a bit longer. Although not forever. Okay, let's see. Additional queens are coming up. Huge Hydralisk counterattack coming in as well. Ooh, and that's gonna hurt. Cure needs to make a decision. He decides to go for the counter instead. Really not enough time to bring this Terran army back home. Loads of drones are going down, but way more SCVs have already fallen on the other side of the map. Looks like we're going for the Brutling upgrade as well. Yep, the Spawn Brutling research is going to finish up in just a moment. It is going to be critical, though, for the Zerg to clean up these Terran troops, and he needs to do a better job keeping these queens alive. Getting a little overeager with them, too. More SCVs, though, did die over in the natural expansion, and now the Infestor, or not the Infestor, the Queen ability is gonna be blanketing on top of all of these Terran troops. Still, the attack speed reduction is nice, Movement speed, though, doesn't really do all too much. I think Rumith, with reinforcements showing up, is going to be able to force this Terran army off of his front door. And this is now going to force Cure into effectively an all-in. I mean, Cure doesn't have that much mining anymore. He's only got 47 workers. I think if he sits here for too much longer, he's just gonna get overwhelmed. 9 queens have gone down, though. 9 queens have gone down, and that has me concerned. Rumith doesn't have infinite money. He needs to get on top of the spellcaster control. Although I guess we can make 7 more. Sure, why not? Trying to sneak some of those units around the side. Don't go into the siege tank meat grinder. Or do. I mean, it'd be entertaining to watch, don't get me wrong. Just need to be so cautious. Siege tanks have decided to unsiege. At this point, the Hydralisks are cornered. They're effectively just trying to maximize the amount of damage that they can deal before ultimately dying, and that will happen right now. Cure's army is big. We're talking 70 army supply versus only 34 for the Zerg at the moment, although a lot of additional Hydras are about to pop out. Here we go. I think Cure is going to try and see if he can potentially go for a killing blow. He can't really continue playing the macro game off of only 35 SCVs, but he did just finish up the +2 attacking upgrade, and also the +3 armor is already done. That's one of the reasons why the Hydralisks seem to be fizzling out. Can Cure actually bring it home with one final push? I think there's a very real chance. Zerg is trying to set up what looks like a bit of a surround, or maybe he's contemplating a counterattack again. Either way, this Terran army here needs to be addressed, and I don't see the Zerg units currently available at home to get the job done. Cure is sieging up right in the most annoying spot for the Zerg player possible, right in this intersection. In the meantime, though, the Hydra counterattack did go in. Another command center has gone down. How many queens are there? Can he drop Brootlings all over this Terran army? I'm not exactly sure how the Broodling ability works on the queens, but he's researched it. I think it's just a lot of energy. If I'm not mistaken, it insta-kills a target and then spawns a bunch of Broodlings, but you have to be really close. Not a lot of anti-air, though. It's only a handful of Vikings. Let's see. Bunch of Hydras going in. A bit disjointed. Now the Broodlings indeed are going to be spawned. That is a lot of siege tanks going down. Rumith also does cast once more ensnare right there on the Vikings. Additional units do show up. Reinforcing Hydras have popped out of their cocoons, and I think he might just barely be able to get the job done. Nice work, GG. Now, this is a name that I haven't seen in an extremely long time. If you're a StarCraft 2 boomer like myself, you may remember him from the Wings of Liberty days, and I think he may have played after that point too. Either way, spawning right here in the top left-hand corner of Pylon, playing with the StarCraft 2 Terran, we're looking inside of the main base of Braddock. Now, Braddock, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a Russian Zerg, or sorry, a Russian Terran player. Yeah, he is. 38 years old at this point in time. He indeed did play during the very early days of StarCraft 2 and also before that, if I'm not mistaken, in Brood War. So pretty sick to see him giving StarCraft Evolution a shot as well. His opponent, playing with the StarCraft 1 Zerg. We're looking inside of the main base of 3Point. Now, 3Point is another one of those Korean players that plays in the weekly tournaments quite frequently. He signs up for, well, tournaments every once in a while. At the very least, it's a name I see popping up in brackets from time to time. According to Liquipedia, he is a Zerg player, well, from South Korea. Born in 1999. There you go. Not a whole lot of information available, but he does actually play for Hyper 1. Now, Hyper 1, in case you're unfamiliar, he's actually the developer of the StarCraft Evolution mod, and also the one that sent me these replays to go ahead and check out, so we'll have to keep an eye out on exactly what happens here. But now that we have an understanding of how the mod works and how Zerg sort of functions in this type of setup, right, maybe we can see what 3Point does. For some reason, by the way, he's playing under a different username. I'm not exactly sure as to why. Either way, curious to see as well what Braddock decides to go for. I wonder when the last time is I've seen Braddock's username. What is Braddock's biggest tournament result? Yeah, he won $16,000 by winning the Beeline Cup back on December 12th, 2010. He won 4-0 in the grand finals. There's a lot of other tournaments, though, that he participated in, playing against the likes of Lucifron, Stevano, Happy, Straylock, Nama, Naniwa, Rail. Ah, very fun. A lot of those names are old school. I think he's been playing for a while, though. Like, I've seen his name pop up in, like, some tournaments here and there, and I think he takes, like, extended breaks from StarCraft. But then, well, sometimes he decides to pick it back up again and give it another shot. Either way, 3-point right here, already going for a different way to start off the game, as he's actually going for a quick Zergling speed. I am imagining that going metabolic boost is the norm. At the very least in StarCraft 1, it's something you usually do. But in the previous match, we didn't see that. Maybe Hydras, though, are still the go-to, right? It just makes a lot of sense to go Hydralisks. Nice little bit of Reaper micro. Ultimately, the Reaper does fall, but 2 drones. Not bad whatsoever. Factory coming up right here for Braddock. Another one that is. So, once more, it looks to me like we are playing Terran mech. Is that going to be the theme? Is that what we're going to have here? By the way, look at the little Zerglings. Have you ever noticed that StarCraft Brood War Zerglings have, like, flippers? I don't know if they're supposed to, but these look like they would do well in water. Very aquatic creatures, man. Maybe Zerglings are closer to ducks than anything else. Anyways. Additional factories. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming we are going to be going into Cyclone Mech again, because it is sort of the flavor of StarCraft 2 at the moment. Flavor of the month. Flavor of the year, maybe. Blue Flame is going to be his first weapon of choice. Braddock throwing a bit of a curveball. And then already sacrifices the Hellions. I guess he saw an opportunity, but generally if you want to go for this upgrade, you want to save your Hellions. Although at this point, if you have already killed 7 drones, 4 Hellions go down, maybe cancel Blue Flame? Either way, it looks to me like he wants to double down, and this is actually a different approach right here from the Terran. So at the very least for now, it's not going to be Cyclone Mech. This looks like good old vanilla mech instead. So siege tanks, Hellions, Hellbats, the whole shebang. Creep colonies planted down everywhere and then, well, upgraded to Sunkens. You kind of need it in Brood War. Since obviously you don't have access to Queens, aka the jack of all trade defense in StarCraft 2. Static defense is sort of the norm. That's actually quite powerful in general, right? It's not a bad idea to have added into the mix. Additional hatchery coming up as well. The spawning pool itself, by the way, I think this is a custom, like a custom model that somebody made. So there are a lot of like official editor included type of models, or included in the editor type of models that Blizzard made. But you can also add your own if you want to. A little Zergling run by the way, is going to be attempted. But these little flippers are not going to be too useful against Hellions with blue flames. Fair enough. Either way, getting all of these custom skins added into the game, right, is really neat. I don't like I guess that's a good thing, right? I have a hard time looking at these skins and thinking about which ones are Blizzard's official ones and then ones that are community made. And I guess that's exactly what you're aiming for. You want to have that great integration. A lot of damage being done, though. Yeah, and usually Queens are so powerful against this sort of thing, right? The Hydra DPS just doesn't seem to be quite up to par to the Hydra DPS in StarCraft 2. That's an additional 12 workers going down. And now we're 6 minutes into this game on Pylon. And 21 workers have died. It's also a lot of damage, though. Ooh, what's this? Ventral Sacs, if I'm not mistaken. That is the Dropper Lord ability. So the way that this works in StarCraft 1, and actually how it used to work as well in StarCraft 2 for many, many years, is you can upgrade all of your overlords in one go, rather than individual OVs. I'm pretty sure that this is going to allow every single one of the overlords to get the drop ability. So, I'm not exactly sure what the plan is. Maybe we want to drop into the opponent's main base, and that is a very real opportunity. Now with Braddock trying to move out onto the third base location, and obviously being forced to spread his defense is a little bit more thin. Either way, only time will tell. Hydralisks are going to get their ranged upgrade here as well in just a moment. And you know what? 3-Point has done a good job getting his economy back up and running. And at this point, there's a lot of static defense. I feel like in Brood War, driving your units, at the very least, like your vultures within range of sunken colonies is absolutely terrifying. Ooh, here we go. Not so much the case in StarCraft Evolution, it seems. The aliens just sort of drive by. Okay, let's see. Overlord drops. They're going to be moving out here in just a moment. Ah, we have the lurker aspect research. In StarCraft 1, you don't have a lurker den. Instead, it's something that you upgrade inside of the Hydra den, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously, Brood War lurkers are not nearly as powerful. Did he see? Hold up right now. Did he just fly the Dropper Lords past those Hellions? I don't know if Braddock was paying attention to it. Let's switch to the first-person view of the Terran here for just a moment. Does he see a bunch of Overlords ominously flying around? No. Oh, yeah, yeah, no, he did. He did see. All right, let me take control of the camera again. Maybe those weren't Dropper Lords, though. I don't think visually they're different, so there's a chance that he just doesn't know. Either way, as the Hellions are going down, 13 additional drones do as well. The Dropper Lords are just about to arrive inside of the Terran's main base. Braddock starts up a ring of missile turrets. And I think he's recognized that something fishy is going on. How much damage is this going to be able to deal? Well, the siege tank at the very least is trying to see if it can close the distance. Yeah, he decides to pick back up and get on out of there, but that's so dangerous. Okay. A lot of Zerg units did fall in the meantime, though. 3-Point also going for a double-pronged aggression, or for some double-pronged aggression, rather, over at the third base. For now, Braddock doing a good job holding on. Okay. My main concern is the fact that 35 drones have gone down. It hasn't been free, like 22 Hellions died. But StarCraft 2 Terran mech is very bottlenecked mostly as far as gas goes. Ooh, that's the Parasite. I love that. Look at that. So the Parasite, I believe, lasts until the unit is dead. So this is going to be permanent vision. I really like that he decided to just run in there. It's this one right over here. It has a little, well, a little Parasite, I guess, flying above its head. Oh, we're going to throw down an ensnare as well. Trying to get those units within range. I guess he's really just doing it to reduce the attack speed of the units. Let's see. The siege tanks are here. The first volley is good, but then all of the rest of the volleys are going to be a little bit slower. 3-Point just forces his army up towards this high ground. I find it an extremely ballsy move. I don't know if it's the right one, but my god, is this attack more effective than I thought it was going to be. I am so used to seeing the siege tank just tear the Hydralisks apart. Planetary Fortress, though, finishes up. And that is going to give Braddock the defense that he was looking for, but still a lot of damage dealt by the Zerg. I feel like in StarCraft 1, when you see Hydras pushing into siege tanks like that, and I might be mistaken, but the siege tanks in SC1 just absolutely tear them apart. The StarCraft 2 siege tank's not nearly as scary, it seems. Another Parasite gets thrown down. Apparently the one affected siege tank died, and we're looking for vision. This is such an insane ability, by the way. Just having permanent vision of a unit that is detected now. And look at this, we have another one over here too. 3-Point can just see the move out. Now, I don't think it's a viable choice here for the Terran to destroy the units that are affected. Like, obviously you could kill your own units, but probably not ideal. Adrenal glands, coming up. In a straight-up fight, Braddock's units should be more powerful. But at this point, Zerg is going for the very Zergy approach. Ooh, look at that. We have ourselves, well, one of StarCraft 1's most feared units. We have Defilers. Now, Defilers have a bunch of spells. I think most notably, they have Dark Swarm. First off, Dark Swarm basically lasts forever. That's the one thing I always notice when I watch a Brood War game. The ability just lasts for about 7 years. At least that's what it feels like. It's kind of like a reverse Blinding Cloud. So my understanding is that you throw it onto your own units, and when they sit under the ground, I think, or under the cloud rather, they can only be hit by units that have one ranged. So they basically can only be hit by melee troops. I'm not exactly sure how it works against the lock-on ability. I think it also still affects them with splash damage and all that, so it gets a little bit... It gets a little bit confusing. Either way. Oh. I mean, I really love the spellcaster movement here by 3-point compared to the previous game we saw. I mean, the queens are still flimsy, but now we have multiple spellcasters, and this is what I was suggesting. I think it's the right call. Oh, no. Really? Are we going to try and carpet bomb the Terran army? I think that is indeed the play. There's the Dark Swarms going down. He's going to try and see if he can drop straight on top of the Terran mech units. I mean, the Blue Flame Hellions, though, are going to have a grand old time. It's a cool idea. Visually, it's very impressive, but I don't know if it was the right call. Either way, the Lurkers are now also available, and they're going to be quite powerful in this position. These are some very cool strats here from 3-point, but the Terran army says, yo, that's fun. Let me just kill all of the things. As now the siege tanks decide to set themselves up as well underneath the cloud. Reinforcing Zerg units, though, are going to be available real soon. Drones are pulled away from the mineral lines just to try and, well, tank as much damage as possible. And this is a sacrifice, but one that is necessary. The Zerg units are going to be able to break through, but at a very, very significant cost. Man, the Lurkers also have visually changed. They look much more like StarCraft 1 Lurkers. Huh. I would love to see the Hydralisk Brood War attack sound. Maybe they have it? I feel like in StarCraft 1 they have a much more distinct attacking sound than that. Anyways, double Spire now on the back of this. 87 workers still available. Sure, a lot of damage was dealt here to the Zerg, but with this many hatcheries, you can remake stuff quite rapidly. Whatever we're doing with the Spire, it is going to require a bunch of extractors to be saturated. Oh, there's the Defiler mount. Look at that. Absolute abomination of a structure. It's kind of glorious. All right, Braddock, though, has taken the base all the way in the far top right. Flipper Zerglings are going to be running through. Little ducklings. Hey, wait, duckling is already a word. I thought I came up with a new word, but no, duckling is... Oh, wow. One of mine can actually one-shot Lurkers. How much HP do you guys have? Like 110? 120? Yeah. Yeah, 120 HP for a Lurker. I see. Okay. Greater Spire coming up. So what can we go for? We can go for Guardians, which are basically the StarCraft 1 equivalent of Brood Lords. I do think Brood Lords are a little bit more iconic in my mind. Not a bad idea. You can also go for the big... What are their names again? The big anti-air units. Another option. In Brood War, you actually need to mutate your Munalisks to turn them into flying troops. Either way, we're going to be pushing through here. I think we're going to be building Guardians. That's really the only thing that makes sense. The Dark Swarm is really nice. Yeah, not everybody's inside of it, so I think they still take damage from the siege tanks, but maybe only the splash component of it. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's Guardians and Devourers, right? So Guardians and Devourers, and then we have Defilers as well. I think that's how it works. Either way, 3-point at this point has a very nice bit of income. But he's playing Brood War Zerg, and Brood War Zerg doesn't really have that, like, bunching potential as StarCraft 2 Zerg does. If you look at, for example, Serral's maxed out army in SC2, Serral will go for that army that can actually fight the opponent's army reasonably well. Brood War Zerg is very swarmy, so you have to constantly remax. That is effectively how it is meant to be played. Obviously, in Brood War, you'll run into hotkey limitations, so you can only put so many units on one control group. Not a problem when you're playing in the SC2 engine, so a lot of the rebalancing has been done to, well, for example, Zerglings, right? I mean, one of the reasons Zerglings in StarCraft 1 are quite balanced is because of the fact that they can only have so many in one control group. You can technically put 500 in a control group in SC2. Difficult to pull off in a realistic game. Either way, the Mutalisks are now spotted. And they look like Mutalisks as well. He decides to move in. Oh, they do have the StarCraft 1 sound effects. Maybe the sound effects for the Hydras are just low. Either way, even though, yeah, eventually the Vikings are gonna get cleaned up and the Mutas will stay alive, Braddock has already gotten what he came for, and that was the kill on the hatchery. Thor production has begun. Thors are obviously fantastic against both Mutas, but also against Guardians and Devourers. Not a bad idea. Zerglings, though, are starting to break through the cracks. There are still some Blue Flame Hellbats, so not all of those siege tanks are going to go down. I don't think you can fight this. No chance. That's a hell of a lot of missile turrets being set up. I really like how close these games actually are. Very cool to see. Creep Colony is now mutating into a Spore Colony. Ooh. And there they are. 11 Guardians coming up. So to clarify, this has been a mod that's been in development for, I want to say maybe years at this point. Like, this has been an ongoing effort. That's why everything is so refined and why everything looks as good as it does. It's not a finished project, so it's not like it's done right now and this is the final iteration. But it's nice to check in every once in a while and see where they're at. Here we go, though. Not a lot of air, like anti-air available here for Braddock. He's gonna see the Guardians at this point in time. Question is the Guardian DPS good enough against +3 armor on those, well, Thors? I mean, they're still gonna be able to put in some work. Anti-armor also joins in. Actually, the Overlord has Defilers in it. I'm not exactly sure where we're gonna be dropping them off. And there is actually also the Devourers showing up. So the Devourers, I guess, are mostly just for the air-to-air combat. Now with all of the Thors gone, I think Braddock will have to once more drive back home. But again, much like that engagement on the left side of the map. Yeah, he's already dealt the damage that he was looking for. And GG gets called. That means that our StarCraft 2 Terran here will win. What an absolute blast. If you would like to see more of this type of content, please do me a favor and hit the like button down below. That's like the easiest way to communicate that sort of interest. Because there's a lot of cool games happening in this particular mod, and I'm more than interested to check it out. So let me know. I thought this was really cool. I would love to have a look as well at the Brood War Terran and then also the Brood War Protoss, because it's been a while since we've seen them.